So given there's now just a few weeks to go before the January transfer window opens, I thought this would be a timely point of the season to bring back the Championship Transfer Rumour Roundup, and boy do we have a lot to talk about in today's video. Of course, we had a whole bunch of Championship games going on last night. Feel free to drop your thoughts on those games in the comments down below, but the main focus of today will be all the transfer rumours that are currently going around in the EFL ahead of the January window opening. And I want to get your thoughts on these in the comments down below. Also, if there are any rumours that we don't mention in today's video, drop them in the comments down below and we'll mention them next time. But before we jump into any transfer news, we've got a bit of managerial talk to kick off the video with. Because yesterday it was announced by Millwall that Neil Harris will be leaving the club. Now, the club have described this as a mutual decision between themselves and Harris, and it is worth stating that he will still be in charge of Millwall's game tonight against Sheffield United and in charge of their trip to Middlesbrough over the weekend, but after that he's set to leave the club. It does feel really strange from the outside looking in, I've got to admit. Under Harris, Millwall had been a really solid outfit this season. I know they lost last time out against Coventry and it wasn't a great performance, but they were missing some key players from that game. It was their first loss in 10 league matches as well. After that game, Harris did come out with some quite sharp comments in his post-match interview, but yeah, I think I speak for most Millwall fans when I say this news came as a real shock. In an open letter to the Millwall supporters, Harris described how this wasn't an easy decision and how he wishes the club all the best going forward, and I'm sure he'll get a great send-off by the Millwall fans, but where the club goes from here, I think is really interesting. They're obviously mid-table at the moment. The last time something similar to this happened, the club got it absolutely wrong when Gary Rowett decided to leave. They went in a totally different direction for a totally different style of manager in Joe Edwards, and that just didn't work out whatsoever. As of recording, a lot of the familiar Championship faces have been linked to the Millwall job. You've obviously got Mark Robbins, who's out of a job right now, who's been linked. Stephen Schumacher, I've seen his name thrown in, and a few others of the Championship regulars. But Millwall fans, I'd love to get your reaction to this one down below, and who would you like to see coming in next? We've also seen a little bit of a shuffle around in the Plymouth Argyle dugout as well, with Pete Shuttleworth stepping down from his role as Wayne Rooney's assistant. They've gone ahead and replaced him with the very experienced Mike Phelan. Obviously someone who will already know Wayne Rooney very well from their time at Manchester United previously. And I'm sure Middlesbrough fans won't want to hear this, but there has been a little bit of paper talk recently with Michael Carrick being linked to the West Ham job. Now, West Ham got a big win on Monday night against Wolves that should keep Lopetegui in the Hammers hot seat for a little bit longer, but it seems more than likely that Lopetegui won't be the West Ham manager long term going forward, and it does seem as if the club have been sounding out some potential replacements for him. Of the managers who are fancied by the West Ham board, reportedly Michael Carrick is on that list. Now, I think Carrick has established himself as one of the best managers in the Championship over these past few years, certainly got Middlesbrough playing one of the most attractive, fluid styles of play where there's plenty of goals involved, and with his history of coming through the West Ham Academy as well, if that job potentially was offered to him, I think he'd find it very hard to turn it down. Middlesbrough fans, what's your sort of gauge on that at the moment, and how worried would you be if Lopetegui was sacked? But that's some of the latest managerial speculation in and amongst the Championship. Now, without any further ado, let's jump into those rumours. Now, undoubtedly, one of the biggest stories going around the Championship right now relates to Louie Barry, who's been absolutely smashing things in League One this season while on loan with Stockport County. The Aston Villa youngster, only 21 years old, has scored 14 goals and got an assist in just 19 League One appearances for Stockport this season. And it's now been reported that Villa are prepared to recall him from that loan at Stockport and then send him out on loan to a Championship club in the second half of the campaign to continue his development. Whenever I've caught a glimpse of League One this season, Barry has been someone who's really impressed me this season. And I've got to admit, he looks someone who's ready-made for a Championship side right now. The numbers he's putting up in League One, the performances that have been so consistent, decent this season as well. But who's going to win the race to his signature on loan for the rest of the season? Well, as of recording, it does seem like Middlesbrough are the club in pole position to land his signature. Now, don't get me wrong, there are a whole host of other Championship clubs who are interested in signing the 21-year-old, but Middlesbrough seem to be in the best position right now. It's worth noting, Borough seem to have a decent transfer relationship with Aston Villa. Thinking back to previous years, how well Cameron Archer did while on loan with Middlesbrough from Aston Villa. Middlesbrough obviously signed Finn Azaz not too long ago from Villa. They sent Morgan Rogers in the opposite direction as well. So two clubs who are quite used to dealing with each other in the transfer market, and there's no doubt Borough are one of the best attacking teams in the Championship right now, and I think a player like Barry would thrive working under a manager like Michael Carrick. Borough already have one of the best loanees in the Championship right now in Ben Doak, but the potential of adding Louie Barry to that forward line on the opposite flank, I mean, yeah, that's really exciting, isn't it? I think if this was to happen, you would have to feel for Stockport because, I mean, how do you go about replacing a player like Louie Barry in League One? But when you get in these high-quality loanees, it's always the risk you run, really, especially when there is a recall clause in the contract. Switching over to Leeds United next, Illan Meslier is continuing to attract interest from elsewhere, with Rennes reportedly weighing up a move for the Leeds United shot stopper. Now, it seems more than likely that any potential deal involving Meslier is more likely to go through in the summer than it is in January, but these links to Ligue 1 have resurfaced once again. It's something worth considering from a Leeds perspective, I'd say. I think in the Championship, someone like Meslier is fine. Leeds have obviously had a very good defensive record so far this season, although I'd argue that's a case of how they've been set up and how good that back line's actually been. Leeds have been very good this season at limiting chances at their goal. If they are to get back to the Premier League, I do think that's an area where they can look to upgrade, get someone who's a bit more of a competent shot stopper perhaps for the top level. But it is an interesting one with the Leeds goalkeeper right now. He's under contract until 2026. There's interest from France. I certainly think we'll see those rumours hotting up a little bit more going into January. Now, an exciting avenue that Leeds United could explore is for James McAtee. Now, Man City weren't interested in sending the youngster out on loan over the summer or selling him, anything of that regard really, but the picture could have changed going into the January window. Obviously, James McAtee, someone who Championship fans will know quite well from his loan spell previously with Sheffield United, spent a couple seasons on loan at Bramall Lane, did really well, but he's 22 years old now and hasn't really featured for Man City this season. In the Premier League, he's only made 2 appearances off the bench. He's had a couple of cameo appearances in the Champions League as well, but only 3 starts across all competitions. And it seems as if Man City could be prepared to listen to some offers for the 22-year-old in January. Now, the problem that a side like Leeds would face, who have been credited with some interest in the Man City youngster, is that there are also Premier League suitors after him. You've got the likes of Crystal Palace and West Ham, who have also seen interested. Now, whether Man City would be prepared to sanction another loan deal, it remains to be seen. If we're talking about a permanent deal, though, Man City would be looking for a fee in the region of 20 million to offload the creative midfielder. For Leeds to sanction that sort of deal, I mean, you'd have to be a Premier League club, wouldn't they? One to keep your eye on, though, maybe if not for this January, definitely going into the summer. Speaking of a potential departure from Leeds United in January, though, Joe Geldhart is being linked with quite a few clubs right now. His minutes in the Championship have been really limited this season, obviously quite far down the pecking order at Ellen Road, and he's at that stage of his career now where he's not this, you know, up-and-coming prospect. He's 22, he probably wants to be playing regular first-team football. There have been quite a few clubs who have seen linked of late. You've got Rangers, amongst a whole host of other Championship clubs who have been interested. I've seen Plymouth, Stoke and Preston all credited with interest in the 22-year-old, as well as some clubs from abroad as well. It seems as if from the player's perspective, he'd be open to a loan move in January to get a bit more playing time in his legs. And I'm sure as we approach and get closer to the January window, go, that interest will start to ramp up a little bit more. Plymouth forward Morgan Whittaker was someone that Burnley looked at over the summer. In the end, the deal didn't end up materialising. It's now being reported going into January that it seems unlikely that Burnley will revisit their interest in the Plymouth forward, and they'll instead look at alternative options. Whittaker, who has been out with an injury recently, hasn't quite caught fire in the same way that he did last season. He's only scored 3 goals in 15 championship appearances this season compared to last season when he scored 19 and got 8 assists. He's not quite been playing on that same level. As a result of that, doesn't seem likely that Burnley will be going back in for him in January at this point in time. A really ambitious move for Burnley ahead of January would be going after Brighton's Evan Ferguson. They have been linked with a loan move for the Brighton youngster, but I mean, it seems unlikely that he'll drop down to the Championship, especially when there are some potential Premier League suitors that would be interested in taking the 20-year-old. Obviously, he has had a few injury setbacks recently, hasn't been a regular starter for Brighton this season. He's only started in 2 Premier League matches for the Seagulls and has made 8 appearances off the bench. Very much feels like when fit, Danny Welbeck's obviously the preferred striker at Brighton, with Joao Pedro playing off him. They got Rutter in that position as well, so a lot of competition for places in those forward positions at Brighton. A loan move could very well be on the cards for Ferguson in January, but whether I see him going to Burnley, I'm not sure. Like I say, a few Premier League clubs would be interested as well. We have seen this rumour pop up before, but it's resurfaced once again. Kyle Walker being linked with a return back to Bramall Lane and to Sheffield United. Now, Kyle Walker is still under contract at Man City until the summer of 2026, but going off the latest reports, it seems likely that Man City will be willing to offload the experienced defender in the upcoming summer transfer window. Doesn't look like a January move will be on the cards for Walker, but I mean, there's no doubt if you've been keeping up with the Premier League this season, Walker has looked pretty far off the pace. His decline has been pretty sharp this season, and as a result of that, it seems like Man City would be prepared to let him go next summer. Among the clubs interested are reportedly Sheffield United. Now, this one would be dependent on Sheffield United being promoted back to the Premier League this season. What gives them a potential boost in the pursuit for Walker is that he has spoken about potentially returning to Sheffield United in the past. Obviously, the club he started his career at, it would be a romantic move for Walker, but he is also expected to have options on the table to potentially go to MLS and Saudi Arabia too at the end of the season, so Walker will have a pick of the clubs really. We've seen Philadelphia Union fullback Kai Wagner being linked with a move to the Championship, with both Coventry and Burnley said to be interested in the German left back. Now, the 27-year-old is under contract at Philadelphia Union until the end of 2026, but he does have a release clause in his contract which is worth around about 1.7 million. He's coming off the back of a strong season in MLS where he got 11 goal contributions in 34 appearances, 1 goal and 10 assists, which is decent going. His creative numbers also really good in that league as well, averaging 2.9 chances created per game. Definitely one to keep your eye on going into the January transfer window. Well guys, there you have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in. That will wrap it up. Like I say, if you've seen any other rumours going on in the league, make sure to let me know about them in the comments down below. This was just a quick video to get the ball rolling with the transfer rumours, which are starting to crop up once again ahead of January. As always though guys, if you did go on to enjoy, please do leave a like, stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content, and I'll see you all in the next one.